Playbook by CEO East Africa Magazine in association with FCCA Uganda and Deloitte.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another edition of the CFO Playbook, a production of the CEO East Africa Magazine in partnership with ACCA Uganda and Deloitte Uganda. And here we get to discuss finance leadership by speaking to leaders in the finance in the finance industry. Of course, those are the CFOs. And I know there are guys who keep all the books. They know what's going on in the organization. And a while ago, they used to be also the most feared people because they used to make those tough decisions. But I think as time goes on, they have become friendlier and friendlier. And we love that. And here we are to discuss, get some bit of insights and understand the profession more and look at the increasing role they are playing in the growth of organizations. With me here today is Diana Kisaka. She's an assistant commissioner of the Taxman, also known as Uganda Revenue Authority. Welcome to the show, Diana.
Thank you very much, Charm. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Great. This is one of those few occasions where you get to sit before a taxman and you're very comfortable. Because I know, but yeah, but interesting. I think the taxman of these days has become more and more friendlier. Which allows you to be able to have very good conversations, while at the same time having, hard conversations, but in a friendlier way. So we thank the URA for the transformation. So before we dig deep, maybe let's get to know you better. What are those things that you'd like the public out there to know about you?
Thank you very much once again, Cham. And I would like to, first of all, thank the ACCA for allowing me this opportunity to share about the profession, but also my role. Well, first, the name, Kisaka Diana, Assistant Commissioner for Finance at Uganda Revenue Authority. I have done that role for nearly 7 years now, and I love it. I love that role. Family, I come from a very large family, 6 of us. The beauty with that is that there's actually 5 girls and just 1 boy, which is, I think, a good thing. We get a lot of energy going as girl children, and I think it has also shaped me personally. Knowing that you are there and you must survive as girls. Yeah, so it is a good thing for me. It helps us to actually step forward. Yes, I'm married. I am also a mother of 5 wonderful children. Now, in my case, it is the reverse. It is 4 boys and just 1 girl. So I guess we are balancing the equation between what the parents did and what we are able to do just now. Yeah, that is, I think, a brief on about me.
Okay, interesting. When you said, very large family, I was there thinking double digit, because I think in the world of finance, anything double digit growth is very nice. So, but now you gave me single digit, and I'm like six. Come on, just very few people. But I know in today's economy, 6. But I'm thinking 6. Maybe you should add another 2. So that you catch up with your parents. Maybe.
I actually have no trouble at all. Any day now, I'm actually hoping I can get twins or something like that, just to make this thing a little bit faster. So the doors are still very open.
Dear viewer, I think you have heard the message. Let's come back to finance now.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So for how long have you been with URA?
I have worked with the Uganda Revenue Authority for 17 years now.
Okay.
A very interesting journey, because my first appointment with the authority was actually as a customs officer. Of course, I came in having qualified as an accountant at that time, but the role that was available was in the customs department. So I was deployed in the customs audit function, where I served very briefly. After that, I moved to the finance function, and I have been in finance for more than 15 years now. Yes,
that's very interesting. I mean, staying that long in an organization, I know these days people they stay hardly for 3 years. I mean, somebody who says after 2 years they're already beginning to look outside. I mean, what is it that makes you stay there and happy? I mean, I'm assuming you're happy. Otherwise, you ought to be looking outside. But in your perspective, what makes people stay longer in organizations?
I think one of the things that determines that decision is really what your aspirations are in life. Because the working environment, of course, is dynamic. It changes. And there are things that can actually prompt you to move. But once you have determined what your vision is and where you really want to go, then you will focus on that. Personally, I set out to grow my career in finance, and I wanted to grow it with an organization that is stable. URA is a very stable organization. Maybe public sector largely is a stable environment. So I like stability. I don't like to be up and about. But definitely, because I'm also a mother, I don't like to be moving so much because there is that fold that I must actually take care of. And I want to be sure that I can juggle everything with them while in a stable environment. So, but leadership also contributes. In fact, they say that people don't leave organizations. People leave leaders. So the kind of leader that you have in an organization determines whether or not you stay or you move on. I've been very privileged to have very wonderful leaders throughout my tenure. And maybe some of them you may know. There's a gentleman called Mr. Otonga Michael. He was our first, when I joined the organization, he was the Assistant Commissioner for Finance at that time, actually. Later, we got a lady called Edna Rugumayo. And then after that, I got somebody called Herbert Tresoke. These are all people in my lineage of heading that function. And these have been brilliant leaders, people who are focused, people who are determined to maintain standard. And that is a place that I want to be, where I know we are not going to compromise. We're going to do what is right. So that has contributed largely to my staying with the organization this long.
Okay. Interesting things. There's something you mentioned, and I just need to jump on it before I forget. You talked about the focus on doing what is right. I mean, in your place as a tax person and even generally as a leader, I think doing what is right, especially scanning the wider landscape, is something that's becoming harder and harder every day. And I'm sure you face lots of pressures coming from different directions. What has been your experience, and what are some of the tips you could share in terms of how to stay focused and doing what is right, especially amidst all these growing external pressures and sometimes internal?
There is absolutely no doubt. The pressures in the finance profession are enormous because we deal with money. We deal with decisions that touch on money directly. Or the general inclination of society is that you should be able to pick what you can from there. But at the backbone, personally, of my work is the issue of character. Your character must be strong enough. You must be able to know, this belongs to me, this does not belong to me. And for that reason, I will not touch it. This also goes into really the basic training that we go through, even parenting, so to say. How do we teach our children to know, this is yours, this is not yours, you will not touch it. Society may be speaking something else, but can you be strong enough? Even when you have personal needs, because the needs are there as well. I may want to do one or two things here and there, and the resources are there. I could do one or two things that could lead me there, but that gain is actually not going to lead you very far. Sooner than later, you will come back to where you started. So to also understand that there are actually consequences for every decision. It may look like it is nice, rosy, and flashy for now, but just a little ahead, you will get to the place you ought to be, because every seed has a harvest. Interestingly, the harvest is always bigger than the seed. So that for me keeps me grounded. Do what is right, sow the right seed, get the right result, and instill the same character among the teams that we lead, in spite of the pressures.
And as you're talking about the seed, something, there's this joke in the business world that don't eat your own capital, maybe like invest a little capital, along the way. So, and I know, having grown up in a farming household, I know there's a temptation to eat the seed halfway before it fully matures. So, very interesting. Being an assistant commissioner, I could see you're already seeing the post of commissioner just nearby, and of course, it's also a senior leadership role within the department. And you talked about the importance of leaders being able to create stability for their people.
Yes.
Having enjoyed and been the beneficiary of the stability of the great leaders that you mentioned, what are you doing in your particular place, or what are some of the tips you could share based on what you learned from your previous leaders, but also what you're doing to create a stable environment for your people?
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very interesting question. One of the things that I find is really pertinent is that at whatever level you are, you will have two layers. You'll have the layer ahead of you, and you will have the layer below you. I owe it to the layer above me to support maximally. So I have a commissioner who I report to, and it is my duty to ensure that this leader is supported, that he gets the work that needs to be done very correctly. Now, how do I do that? I actually do that by developing a team below me that is competent enough. The team I lead right now is about 60 people strong.
Whoa.
That's
That's like a small company.
Yes, it's like a small company.
Yeah.
That is the finance team. And my preoccupation really is to see that each of these persons is maximizing their potential. Sometimes people don't even know what they're actually capable of. They've not realized. But as a leader, it is upon me to take time and see, what is this person capable of doing? Are they struggling anywhere? Can I support them along that journey? So I challenge my team every day. Don't stay in your comfort place. Don't stay where you think, oh, I know to do this and I do not need to move any further. Exert yourself. Do more than you are doing. And I think that eventually helps me, because then the pressure is actually off you. All of you are performing. The load is distributed, and you get a better result at the end of the day. So people development is very high on my agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. And let's talk about your growth journey. 17 years. I don't think you just got promoted because you stayed in the organization for 17 years, because you could just stay 17 years in the same place. Looking back at your journey, what are those things that you think at a personal level, leave alone the organization, what you've done at your personal level? Obviously, the organization could have supported you, but the initiatives, the things you've done, the milestones that you think have helped you grow this journey, because then I'm sure there are many other people out there who are starting out in their career, or they are stuck somewhere and they need to unlock the next levels. Maybe hearing that conversation from you could help give them an idea in terms of how they can unlock their journey too.
Wonderful. My own journey, and maybe I could just step back 1 or 2 minutes. First of all, how did I really get inspired to pursue this career? Very interesting. In school, that is Gaza High School, we had career talks every now and again. And on one of those, the ACCA actually came to school and spoke about the accountancy profession. That's where I picked interest, as a matter of fact. I decided to pursue that. My first role, eventually, when I qualified, was a very small role. It was in a non-government organization. It was called Caritas at that time. Very small role. And we were doing work with local communities, women especially, helping them develop. I was a young person myself at that time. But I saw that it was possible to create value for people through the work that we do, but also through using resources appropriately. So that became a drive. We must see that we use resources very well, because there is value that you create for others along the way. So that has been a push for me through life. Later on, of course, I became an officer at the URA. I became a manager at the URA, right from the grassroots. And that has really kept me grounded, to know that everybody, wherever they are actually contributing something. So nobody should undermine themselves. Know that you have potential. It doesn't matter where you start. If you are purposeful enough, you will get where you want to be. I never dreamed that I would be here one day. But when the opportunity presented itself, it found that I had the competence to actually step into that role. Yeah. So develop your competence. It doesn't matter. The opportunity may not be here right now, but work on yourself. Be the person you want to be. Develop your skill. When opportunity comes, it will find you ready. Yes.
Yeah. So, and in terms of developing your skills, have you done some extra training, internal, external? Actually, I think even in terms of some of the qualifications you've gained along the way that have helped you to get where you are.
I actually do a lot of training personally. Of course, after the ACCA qualification, I also did my MBA with the Heriot Watt University. I have done a lot of training in financial management because that is one of my passions as well, just helping individuals to be able to keep afloat. And now I've developed another interest, especially for the young ones. How do they make sure that they don't grow up with the mentality of dependency, but they can do something themselves? So I've done a lot of training, trusteeship, governance matters, ethics, leadership, a lot of that. And it has shaped me, I believe, to be able to deliver on what I am doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. In light of what's going on around the world and, of course, the changing role of the CFO, I mean, everybody is trying to play a catch up, yourself, is there anything about the role, about the profession, and generally the changing landscape that keeps you awake at night? Not necessarily awake, but at least you find it recurring in your head to say, okay, I think this and this needs to be addressed for me to be able to progress, for the profession to be able to grow, and even as a country to be able to move to prepare itself for the next level.
Keeping me awake. Of course, I love my sleep. But I think the profession has transformed quite a lot. One of the drivers for transformation, I believe, is technology. Many years back, we would be called number crunchers. You're busy making those entries and you've got really manual processes to handle. Now, technology has taken us very far. As a CFO right now, in just a click of a button, I can tell what the health of the organization is. If we are talking about cash flow management, if we are talking about focus and projecting, in just a click of a button, I will know where we are at every day. Now, of course, that speed also means that the potential for fraud is higher. The Gen Zs are out there creating opportunities to get away with things because we are running very fast. Service delivery is expected to be really, really fast. So how do we balance the two things? How do we continue to serve the expectations of our clients while also having the necessary governance controls in place in light of the digital operations? So it keeps me quite awake because URA itself is highly digitized. Everything we do, more or less, everything is an overstatement. 80% of what we do is digital. So how do we ensure that we are actually on top of this game? That should anything happen with our financials, we actually know when it has happened and know it in time. Of course, as URA Finance, we handle both the planning and management and financial reporting aspect of the organization, but we also handle the revenue angle, dealing with taxpayers, dealing with systems that the taxpayers work with. And finance, you're caught in the middle of that, making sure that all these two things are together. So I keep a little bit awake in the night, thinking of those mechanisms by which we can be efficient, deliver good service, but also not fall into the trap of those who are probably moving faster than ourselves. Yes. So I guess in that regard also, the issue of competence around those areas becomes very pertinent. And that's not just for the CFO, but for the entire team. Can all of us be really alert and consider that this risk is real, and therefore we must come head on to handle it? Can we not dealing with our work? Can we not think that these systems are infallible? Can we know that human beings are out there and they're actually trying to do something? So can we be on top of our game for this matter? Yes.
Interesting. I think, of course, innovation versus risk management is very key because I think these fraudsters and they're always thinking a little bit ahead of what is in the kind of press. There's something I need to find out. Generally, there is a perception out there that government and the public sector and government organizations are generally your conservative type. They like to take their things at their own pace. When you're having conversations with with other finance leaders, especially in the private sector, in the not-for-profit world, do you get a feeling that these guys are a little ahead of you, or you guys have since merged and you're catching up in the same space? There's basically no difference in terms of the way you adopt to things like technology and innovation and basically moving up to speed.
That's a very good question as well. First of all, on the front of public sector, and much to the credit of the Ministry of Finance, Uganda over time has undertaken reforms in public financial management. These reforms are both in law. I believe we might be familiar with the Public Finance Management Act and regulations that accompany that. But alongside that also is the fact that the government of Uganda has taken a deliberate effort to go digital. You know that across Uganda now, we use a system called the IFMS for management of finances, and this is across all of government. URA itself is probably slightly ahead in that journey as a parastatal, which I think is also necessary because we are kind of dealing with the business sector, which is really running very fast. So we need to ensure that we're actually coming to speed as well. So URA is probably a little bit ahead of the game, may not be very close to private sector totally, but we have made very, very significant efforts. In the finance operation of URA, for instance, right now, we hardly handle any cash. We do digital transactions across board. Only if it is absolutely necessary will we do anything that is manual. Revenue, all of us have to pay funds into the accounts. We've done a lot of system integrations. We work with the telco companies that provide mobile money. They do agency banking services. And this means that actually we must be up to speed because these are private entities and they have gone ahead. We want to make sure that we are not left behind. Yes.
Okay. There's something you mentioned about Gen Zs, and I think it's growing, it's becoming a trend. I don't call it an issue, a trend of its own. You have this young group of knowledgeable and fast and furious people, but who also have their own, because of the nature where they've grown up and the things they've been exposed to. They have a slightly different way of looking at things. So, and I don't know if you as a leader in your team, have you noticed any noticeable differences between the younger professionals versus the people of our time? Is there anything that you notice that's remarkably different? And if so, how do you approach in terms of balancing the equation and making sure everybody is brought up to speed?
Oh, definitely. There's a big difference. The reality is that probably our generation is a lot more conservative. Will take slower steps to get to certain destinations. Whereas the younger generation, the risk coefficient is a lot higher. They are faster. They move quicker. Maybe sometimes they've not considered all angles of a situation, and therefore our input comes in. But at the same time, we've got to be very open-minded. Because I've got teenagers, I see them challenge me, even at home, you know. They're saying, no, but mom, I think we need to do things this way. And at first you might want to resist, but when you put your head down for a minute, you say, well, maybe it makes sense. Let's try it out. The same is true on the team, you know. The younger people will have all these ideas, and their ideas, eventually, when you think about it, with a little bit of toning, you find that they actually take you steps ahead. So we need to find a way of existing together because we must. This is the society in which we are living. We must harness the advantages of these creative minds and see that we get the most out of them. Sometimes they seem more aggressive. We need to take that as well because anyway, the world sometimes needs some aggressiveness. You can't always be sitting back and waiting for things to come at your table. Yeah. Then they also need to step down a little bit. So with constant conversation, we are able to get harmony and deliver on the mandates that we have to deliver on. So it's a good generation that we are dealing with. It's good to be in between and be able to juggle all these things, but it takes an open mind. As a leader, you really must be open. You must be willing to be challenged, and that is okay. Sometimes as leaders, we don't want to be challenged. We think, you know, I have the final say. I've got the final answer. No. Somebody else may have something better because probably their exposure is different from yours. So we accept that challenge and then we build the synergy, we get better at the end of the day.
Speaking of accepting the challenge, and of course, there's also, I think, being a leader is when you have to, to give hard feedback, have hard conversations with people, but also accept and take feedback. Are there some you could say maybe your survival tips or your guidelines or lessons you've learned in terms of how to give hard feedback and take hard feedback, and that you'd like to share so that maybe people out there can learn from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Feedback. Recently, I believe it was the ACCA seminar actually, and there was a presenter on human capital. She says, these days we actually don't call it feedback, we call it feed forward. So I borrowed that narrative. I think one of the things that is important on any team and in any community is that you must be able to connect with the hearts of people before you connect with their heads. You must be able to touch their hearts. So when it comes to actually having a difficult conversation, this person knows that you are not attacking them personally. They know that you have their best interests at heart. And on a team, of course, you must agree on what the expectations are. It must be clear. This is what we must do. We must do it within this time. Have we understood it? When we come to the hard feedback point, we are saying, okay, this is what we set out to do. This is what actually happened. What is going on? And it is really not an emotional conversation. It is really discussing the facts. It is not attacking the person personally. It is just the result we are looking at. So the difficult conversation for me doesn't become really difficult because we are not discussing you. We are discussing this output. Can we see how we can get it better? And it is the same perspective I carry when I'm being corrected as well. Because sometimes, yes, I have actually faltered and I need to step back and make amends in that position. I will endeavor to take that posture and saying this person is actually not against me. They are simply looking at what we had to do and it was not done. So I take it with grace, and I think grace is important. But also empathy. Understand where people are. What are they actually feeling? In that moment, what was happening when they did that kind of thing? Can we empathize with them and then help to get over that situation? Yes.
Interesting. Drawing on an example that you gave much earlier about some of the insights you draw from being a parent of teenagers, and also, of course, from my personal experience, I think being a parent is one of the most humbling experiences, and perhaps also one of the greatest leadership responsibilities you can take. And where I grew up, there used to be a saying of if you did anything wrong to an elder, they would say the equivalent of, they'll be in Runyanko, they would say like Kazari, an equivalent of may you give birth when you grow up. Now we begin to understand why the actual people are wishing that we we give birth, because recently I got one of my boys suspended, and initially I was very angry, but I was like, you know what, I think I'm tired of punishing people. Let me just let it pass. And somehow, so I think, would you say at a personal level, being a parent, are there some lessons you've drawn being a parent, and especially a working parent, that you also find to be useful at the workplace and in leadership within, outside the family?
Definitely. One of them is must have goals, even at the family level, with the children, you must have goals. So we are setting out to do school between now and now. By the way, the other thing is that our children are homeschooled. So in the middle of our children are actually schooled at home, which means my husband and I actually take very active participation in their education. It means we have to have goals.
Yeah.
That carries right through, even at the workplace. We must have goals. We must monitor goals, the same thing that we do. But you must also be very patient and understand that people are different. I've got 5 children. They are extremely different. Not one of them is the same as the other. The same is in the workplace. There is not one mold that employees fit into or teammates fit into. So as a leader, you must actually step back and really understand, what is this person? What is their unique need? What is their unique a perspective of life. And then how do I chip in to make them better? At the end, I'm adding value. That's what I want to do. I want to add value to people. The same way that I'm trying to add value to my children every day. See that at the end, they're able to stand. Because 10 years down the road, I don't want to be dressing boys in Pampers. No, I don't want to do that. So I need them to be able to stand on their own feet and do what they need to do. The same thing in the workplace. I don't want somebody to be staying in one place for so long. You need to be thinking and moving. All of these things play out directly. It is such an integrated life, really. There's almost no distinction, like you said. It is all part of a whole ball of life, and one integrates perfectly with the other.
I recently was interviewing some CEO of a certain organization, and then I asked them about market share. What was their market share? And then they're like, well, there's nobody who can accurately tell you about market share. Maybe you need to ask government, because this guy is in the beverage industry, because you guys have machines on their lines, so you know how many bottles they are producing. Yeah, but of course, the same is true that being URA, you have like a helicopter view of the economy. You can tell in terms of how people are being compliant, and So from where you sit as URA, and especially looking at the numbers, do you get a feeling that the economy is getting better, especially the businesses are doing much better? Are there any particular areas, maybe in particular sectors, that you think are limping, and what's your perspective?
Well, that's quite a broad question. There's two ways to look at it. One is the economy changing. And yesterday, apparently, we were at the taxpayers' appreciation event, which is the crowning of a season that we go through to appreciate our clients, really, the taxpayers, as far as compliance is concerned. So when you look 1991, when the organization started, I think our target was about 100 and something billion. 1991. Right now, we are close to 32 trillion. There's growth. The economy has grown. There's also another dimension to look at growth. It is the famous number, tax to GDP. Now, we always have this conversation, and we know that ours has stagnated around 12, 13, and 14 for a bit of time, which means that what growth is happening in the economy, we are only converting it to tax by 14%. Businesses are growing, yes, but the conversion rate to tax is not yet commensurate with what we want to do. In Africa, we expect it to be at about 20%. So we are still below the benchmarks. In the Scandinavian and OECD countries, 26, 36, even 46. So we are still away from that. And so our effort really needs to be doubled, but also the citizens of Uganda, both corporate citizens and natural citizens, need to understand that our obligation for tax is real, and we need to pitch in wherever possible. Companies need to ensure that their governance around tax is actually good, and that we are really doing our fair share. But I know there are sectors like agriculture where there is a lot of GDP, so to say, whereas the tax that comes out of agriculture is so small. But we also know that our population is largely in agriculture. So if you want to touch agriculture, it means you're going to touch a lot of livelihoods. So there is that balance that is required at the policy level to see how do we tap tax out of that agricultural sector. Because right now it is mostly services and industry that is contributing for us. So we've made progress, but we can definitely do better.
As a CFO, you understand the concept of shareholder value very well. In regard to taxpayers, do you want to comment about shareholder value versus tax morale? Or that's a political question?
I think that is a political question.
Okay, we will sidestep that, but I think therein lies the answer, because I personally believe that, yes, I think I agree that there should be the contribution of GDP by sector should be commensurate also to their tax contribution. And I think agriculture is really not balancing in terms of, it contributes a lot in terms of GDP, but when what contributes to the tax base is on the low. And probably some of the decisions could be political, but we shall not go there. Maybe just in light of the growth in the economy, do you also see the health of the businesses, especially in terms of post-COVID recovery? If you measure that against compliance, do you see the health of the individual businesses, your taxpayers, improving much better than maybe from the time we're just emerging out of COVID? Yeah.
First, I will comment on the fact that I think government is really making great effort to see that there is an even distribution of resources for all citizens, because it is our right as citizens to really enjoy a nice and peaceful country. We know we've got a lot of security, we're able to do our businesses. There are other things that may not be as good as we want them to be, but we see that there is commitment by government on that on that front. Businesses generally have gotten better because we see that the year-on-year growth on revenue has also become better. It is consistent. It isn't dropping. At least year-on-year, we are having a growth of not less than 10% in our tax. And the same is true for businesses. Definitely the COVID season brought many businesses down, and some of them were not even actually able to survive. It was quite a difficult period for all of us. But we see that recovery is happening, and we see that businesses are starting to pick up, and the targets are getting better. Our growth on revenue is also getting better, which points to a positive trajectory. We believe that it will be able to continue and that we'll arrive to the place where we want to be.
Interestingly, something you talked about homeschooling. I'm particularly a fan of homeschooling, although I'm a coward. I haven't been bold enough to take that step because I think of what is required and all that. Will I be able to find enough time? Although I am deeply convinced that being in the workplace where I am and seeing what other people are doing and the skills and the things that are required to do the things that especially make them the most money these days, some of these skills are not being given in schools. I would like to understand what has been your experience as a working mother with homeschooling. What inspired you? And also what scared you from the conventional education system?
All right, homeschooling. Homeschooling is a very interesting experience. And really, the inspiration was by my husband. At that time, he felt that we needed to take this direction for the children. So for preschool, the first two of them were actually attended preschool. But whilst we were contemplating the idea of going into primary one and all that, that's when we switched to the homeschooling option. So the last three have actually not been to the public school at all. The first two were to do at least their preschool in school. We find that there is a lot of liberty to influence the children when you homeschool them. And then you also get the opportunity to actually have a one-on-one touch with them. So both my husband and I are actively involved in the schooling of our children, although we also get a supervisor to sit in with them all the time. So this gives us the opportunity to actually know them. We know what they are going through. We go through these challenges with them. A child will have difficulty at school going through mathematics. They may come home and you don't understand why they're actually behaving the way they are. At home, we actually see this. The problem is actually mathematics. They are teenagers now. They start to go through issues with relationships, friendships, and all that. And then you get the opportunity to actually walk this journey with them, point them and say, okay, yes, this is actually something natural. It happens, yes, but is this the time you actually need to do this? What are the things we are considering? So we found that this was a viable option for ourselves to really be hands-on and influence them directly. We have seen that we can actually do a lot of extracurricular on it because time is released. Where we would be in a commute, taking them to school and then come upon, all this time gets integrated into the other things that they can do. And also as siblings, they grow up really close. They are each other's best friends, if I can say, because they are connected with one another almost all the time. Of course, there is the question that usually came, but how do they associate with others? And they so care deep. They've got no experience with anything else. No, we put a whole community a support system in which they actually get to interact with others. That is, they turn to other parents hands-on, so they develop their relationships as well through that. So we find this balance really, really beneficial. And on top of that, for us, it's also economically viable. It is not as costly. We plan for it. Yeah, being a finance person, I like planning. I don't like things taking me by surprise. So we plan for it, and we're able to accommodate the costs that we must incur as far as this education is concerned, and we manage to it well.
Okay, interesting. There's something you mentioned about planning and sticking to the plan. And I mean, you finance guys do this a lot. I mean, you haven't paid for it. That's why one of the things you're supposed to be doing in the organization. Don't you find sometimes managing innovation within I don't want to say maybe being strict and how do you manage innovation but still stay in line?
I think we must always keep the broader picture. What are we ultimately trying to achieve? So we may have set out to do A. Right now, because of the dynamics of business, we'll need to do B. And I need to come to the point and evaluate how does B contribute to our broader goal. It is the broader goal we are always looking at. So for me, that is usually a basis of decision. Does this support our broader goal, or is it just a short-term thing we want to do? It may not yield a result that we want. And I think as a CFO, you need to really sit into that place of being a strategic partner. It's not just number crunching. It is saying we've got strategy to achieve. The decisions we are taking, are they leading us to achieving that strategy? At the end of the day, that is what we are going to evaluate. In the heat of the moment, you may be tempted to say, no, let's just sidestep that and not with this. Is it getting you where you want to go? So you keep that open mind, you are flexible, but you're also able to engage the stakeholders and convince them in case your inclination is that this will not lead us where we are going. Being able to have those conversations and say, no, I think this will not lead us where we want to. That option will be considered at a later point in time. For now, let us stick with what we needed to do. Or this is actually viable. It leads us to where we want to go, so let's go with it. So being a strategic partner as a CFO is very key. And you must be in sync, definitely, with the CEO. You must know the vision very clearly. You must be in sync with the board. Where are we going? And are you supporting that direction?
Interesting. I was interviewing some CFO recently who said something that I didn't believe in being a finance person. Maybe if I ask you today, they tell me I might believe them now. He told me that sometimes now CFOs, I mean, the typical CFO of like 10 years ago used to be the guys who were looking for a reason to say no all the time. It's like, but nowadays we find ourselves were the ones who are actually saying, why aren't we spending more money here? Why aren't we putting more money here? Are you that kind of CEO as well? Or are you found the same situation where you sometimes encourage people to say, let's spend some more? Like when you go for the office party, you find the CFO saying, no, bring us some more whiskey. Do you see more and more of those occasions coming up?
I think I view the CFO role as a business enabler, enabling business. And enabling business means that you must know the direction that we are taking. So my goal is not to say no. My goal is to ask the question. So the goal must be in sight all the time. If we are sidestepping, we must know, is this supporting us? It's almost the same thing. And for me, this is where it all revolves. So I don't want to just say no. And also in the public finance aspect, we are measured against the performance of our plans. So I set out, I went to the CEO, went to Parliament, asked for a budget for so much to do and to fit. At the end of the day, the abandoned officer is actually going to be measured. What was your level of change on the plan that you set out to do? So that is the point at which I actually come in and say, guys, we said we're going to do this. We have not done it. Can we get on with it? Or we said we're going to do this, we're doing this instead. How do we accommodate that? So ensuring that there is compliance on all fronts, but that the goal of the accountable is actually being achieved. So I'm not a no person. I think I am a more KYY person. I want to get the explanation and then we'll get on. Yes.
I see you try to be a finance person after all. As a woman finance leader, do you, and I mean, from conversations, from the trends and from what you're reading, do you feel it's getting easier to be a woman finance leader than it was maybe like 5 years ago? Is the world doing enough to enable more women leaders to come up, or is there you feel there's more that needs to be done? I also want to be that every profession exerts different pressures on different genders differently. Do you feel like there are some challenges that are gender specific, maybe opportunities that are gender specific, or that favor or disfavor certain genders, and this is all in a place to try and repair. Usually for those who are still upcoming, who are having hate fields, they need to be knowing what is up there and be able to prepare for appropriately. And are there any specific thing that it seems, particularly as a female gender, you can do to make your life easier in this, especially as you get closer to the leadership roles?
That is quite a lot of questions, but I will attempt to go through it. One, as I mentioned earlier, my family is 5 girls. One of the areas that we found the greatest encouragement and confidence was upon our father. Being a father of 5 girls, was one of our strongest cheerleaders. And he always told us, you can make it. You can be strong. You can stand on the feet. I mean, one of the things she always emphasizes is when you talk to somebody, actually look when they are. Don't look on the side. Now, that is not common in our culture, but it is something she always told us. Be direct, because every time you look on the side, it looks as if you're trying to hide something. Be confident in yourself. So that confidence personally drew me. And I love mathematics because of my father. He was my mathematics teacher. I was a teacher. I always thought, no, I must really make Daddy proud because of this investment that he has put in my life. And he took time to actually teach me. I remember him cutting little sticks from fence to teach me how to count. Those little sticks. These days we buy them in the shops. They are meant, for us. So we'll just go to the fence, cut them, and then you're learning how to count. And so that grew my passion personally. And I think I didn't stop a lot to think, oh my God, what me. But in reality also, that actually this is the gender in which we find ourselves. So I just encourage ladies generally to know that you are complete in yourself and you can stand on your 2 feet. That's what my parents gave me as a heritage. You can stand boldly in whatever arena that you are, and you can do your part without thinking that you have a certain limitation to you. The only limitation comes in our minds. And I think that comes to us as parents. We must really encourage our children. And this is all, boys or girls. Because even now you find actually boys who are feeling they can't stand out, because nobody is giving them this confidence to actually stand out. So we owe it to the next generation to actually give them this confidence, to be able to know that they can stand. Because I can coach 4 boys, I must do this constant. They must be able to stand on their feet and do what they need to do. Now, as leaders in a career, life is busy. The finance profession is very busy. Going through the rounds, the number crunching is huge. I remember spending lots of long hours working. In fact, at one point I got into trouble with my back. Because of definitely sitting for long hours. Also, that is coupled with having 5 children in between. That also cannot take a toll on you. It's a reality. But having a support system around you does help. Knowing that there are people who will actually help you carry this load. The little things that may naturally be required of a wife, for instance, at home, when there is need, he is taking, and he will do those things. And definitely, I will also rise up to the occasion and do what I need to do at that time. So the support system is very necessary. All ladies, whenever you aspire, you get into this kind of place, build that support system. But for men also, because we see that men also get into mental health matters because they are pushing too much. They're not sharing as much as they should. They are carrying the load on them. And sometimes you see this exploding in the workplace with our male bosses. Unfortunately, you see it happening and then you realize, okay, it's not just a female thing. It is a human thing. Our CEO recently came from a training, and one of the things that you mentioned that he took away from the training is about performance and then recovery. Everybody must do that. Perform, but find time. And this must be a daily decision. Find your hours of sleep, get them. But work when you cease to breathe. The next person is waiting at the door, and they will do it. So prioritize yourself. Make sure you perform, but also make sure that you take care of you, and then build competence. Don't expect things on yourself up later. Don't think that somebody's going to favor you simply because you walked in as a lady. No, don't expect favor. Build the competence. Be strong in what you do. Know it very well. Do it very well. Speak for it. In fact, learn to talk. That is one of the things I think it is common world that finance people are not very good communicators. Skill yourself in public speech. Know what it takes to actually make a pitch for something. Go out there and speak boldly. Don't expect anything on the silver platter. That is what my mother taught me, and I carry it every day. This is not your father's garden. Go there and add what is due to you. Don't just expect a paycheck from it. So let's be encouraged as ladies, and let's walk in strong stride, because we are able to do this if your ability is within us. Yes.
The next question I'm going to ask, I must put it this game, is a little bit controversial because it carries a bit of my own views. Recently I watched an interview. They were asking a lady, I think she was a successful lady. I don't find to ask, but I think I saw it on TikTok. And of course, she was talking about her growth in career and everything else. And then she was talking about family. She's married. And out of nowhere, the interviewer asked her, "Is your husband happy?" Now, I think most women have been used to being asked that, "Are you happy?" They've not had them to think about, "Is my husband happy? Am I making him happy?" Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is that when it comes to having a support system, and I'm speaking because as a man, and I hear this often, most men say that, especially as women rise, and I mean we're seeing a lot of men and women rise, and also as the world focuses a lot more on the girl child, they are not focusing on the boy child, on how to deal with a woman who has come stronger and powerful. Meaning that even as the home support system is important, the question that you hear from men say that women, especially those that are quote more powerful, do not know how to be good support systems to their husband, and that often causes a knock or something. Of course, I'm not going to ask you if your husband is happy, but I'm saying that speaking with your other colleagues, and your peers, and so how should successful women be also reciprocating, or how should, because again, as you rise, there's more requirements on you, and that takes a toll of the family. How do you balance, how do you do stakeholder engagement in your home and in the other communities where you expect it? Because we're now 24 hours, yeah, so I'd make sure that as you pay more attention to fixing the requirements of your new leadership roles, everybody doesn't feel left out.
Well, I don't mind actually answering the question. Is my husband happy? No, but I'm actually pretty confident that he's happy. The common advice that we get is that in marriage, you need to keep quiet. But this person said, no, do not keep quiet. Are you okay? Am I okay? Keep the conversation open. That is one of the things we have trying to do for these years, regardless of what life has thrown at us. It is keeping that conversation open between you and your family, spouse, children. Are we all doing okay? Because when that support system collapses, everything else is going to come tumbling with it, unfortunately. For a season, again, it may look like it is fine. So feedback and feed forward is key. We keep that alert. Responsibilities of children, like I said, we homeschool. So once or twice a week, I'll carry one of the children into office. The same will be done by us down. We'll carry the children to office so that we are keeping in touch with what is going on. As women and as any individual, we cannot forget our role. I think this goes for men as well, that as you get very busy in the corporate world, don't forget your family. As a lady, it is upon me, and it is a priority matter, that my family comes first. Before everything else, well, in the order of priorities, God first, family next. Definitely in family, spouse first, children next, and all these things. So getting those things in order helps you allocate time and not just be haphazard. You're making sure that you are allocating due time for all of these things to survive. We do all these SWOT analyses for companies, the businesses that we work with, but we forgot to do it for ourselves. I think that's a fallacy. That you learn so much truth and you do not apply it. I think wisdom is in applying what you know. And so I do my best for the things that I learned professionally to apply them to my life. How do they actually feature? So that I am a stronger person and a stronger woman, both to deliver in the business, but my family is also strong and stable and is able to operate as it should. So it is possible, Palidi. It is easy to us to some more. Pero it is to not forget that.
Okay, great. I think there's been a great conversation, especially that last one. This morning I was reading, I think a post on LinkedIn by a lady, she called Arena Sim, which is I think she's the Chief Operating Officer of Trademark Africa, and she was talking about the power of "Are you okay?" for managers. Being able to go around and asking your people, "Are you okay?" And but someone actually wrote something also related to that. But for this time, they called the power of walking around and meeting your people and finding out how they are doing. I think it's been a great conversation having this with you. Looking forward to having more conversations over the coming days, and maybe when you become commissioner, and eventually you become commissioner general, like in the next many years. Great to have you. Thank you, those who are following the CFO Playbook, production of the CEO East Africa magazine in association with ACCA Uganda and Deloitte Uganda. And please stay with us as we continue to explore more into the minds of our finance leaders, as we get to understand more the profession and what is that inspires them to lead and become better leaders that are building a better Uganda. Thank you.
CFO Playbook by CEO East Africa Magazine in association with FCCA Uganda and Deloitte.